When we undertook this initiative, we really knew that for it to grow, we would have to show some evidence that it was of value to our school board and mostly to our students and our teachers in terms of their development. So we tried to look at, we tried to develop a protocol with our eBest research partners within the board of how we would collect data, both in a quantitative and a qualitative manner. To begin, we started by just asking teachers questions to tell us their stories about when they knew their students were thinking deeply. What tools were they using? What did they need? So we really did a bit of an analysis of where the participants were in terms of their thinking about thinking and how they were teaching thinking. And we collected those little testimonials and their answers and really analyzed these with the Rotman team, who really were partners in this project because they too were curious. So we took that background data and with our planning team, we sat down and developed ways of delivering these tools to our teachers over a period of 4-month period. So that was also to give teachers voice. In using the qualitative data, we looked at the stories that the teachers presented to us, and we categorized them into, what changes do you see in terms of your students' thinking? What changes do you see in the way you think about teaching thinking? And how do students think differently about their thinking? And we did a pattern or a theme analysis through our eBest research partners, where they looked at all the writing and they brought out specific themes to show us where we were seeing our best bang for our buck, where were we making a difference. Whenever we collected data, we always gave it back to the participants for them to reflect upon, to talk about and see how other people's thinking was changed, because that again in effect changed their views on how they could think or progress, and also gave them different ideas on how they could utilize the tools in different scenarios. Because we had teachers, like I said, teaching grade 12 physics, grade 9 science, grade 6 math. We had a range of teachers teaching in different disciplines, and seeing how they utilize the tools in different ways as trailblazers, as teacher leaders. They were empowered to share and model and help each other as they worked through the tools. We also collected data in intervals between the diagnostic that I mentioned, where we asked teachers ahead of time and where they ended up. And we gave them just exit cards at the end of each session to fill out, asking similar questions. And we used their thinking and gave it back to them through the process, so they could see where they were moving, and we would feed that to the Rotman team, who would take that data and, with myself, construct where we were going as a team to meet the ongoing or moving target of needs of the teachers involved. So the teachers felt that it was really their grassroots learning, and that their learning was being addressed and their needs were being addressed, and that it was the learning was being tailored to their specific situations, which was really powerful. I think that the reason that they were able to be so open and free about their data and their stories and talking about their successes as well as their failures came from the fact that we had a superintendent who was very open to the learning, who really believed in our learning, and who was our champion. Dr. Mag Gardner, she was our superintendent that really helped make this happen. And she would come to our sessions, and when people were worried that they would have to be accountable, she would say, go and take a risk. Don't worry. It's play with the tools, and gave people license not to have to be so rigidly accountable in terms of their marks for the processes they were going through. It granted them the freedom to then say, okay, the system will allow me to really dig in, to try, to take a risk. And in doing so, they became more honest about what they fed us in terms of data, and their learning became more authentic because it was based on truly what they were trying out as the learners and learning how to think more deeply themselves. Because the students were also having to unlearn the practice of sitting and waiting for the teacher to give them the answer. So they were at first very reluctant to expose their thinking. Being young adolescents, we know are always a little worried about how their peer. So we had originally tried to look at it from a student achievement point of view, but now, knowing now that that was probably the wrong way to look, because we would then be putting such pressure on them that we probably wouldn't get anything authentic. So in releasing that, we looked at student achievement data then through the work that they were doing in the tools, and teachers would use the work that they were doing with causal modeling or using the pro chart or the ladder of inference. They would use those as their assessment tools to measure student achievement. I think what would be very interesting for us to see is now over a long term, as we move this from middle school to high school, how will that change those students? And it might be really nice to see where they land when they're in high school, at a later date.